I'm going again.
His biggest strength is his greatest weakness. He's always climbing.
In the world of climbing, the biggest hold you're probably gonna ever encounter is what's known as a sloper. For the uninitiated, a sloper is just a big hold, doesn't have to be big, but a hold that doesn't have any particular set edges or wedges. For example, this is a wombo sloper, and then we move over here. These right here are slopers. If we take a look at how it's formed, it's nice, it's smooth, and again, there's no edges or ridges. When it comes to holding slopers, there is a general rule in mind. If we look at the sloper rail, we're gonna treat all slopers the exact same way we treat crimps, jugs, and etc. Meaning, we're gonna hit it from a perpendicular angle with our body weight being down. When it comes to sloper, it is actually super important that our body weight is directly beneath the hold. The reason why is because with our body weight directly beneath the hold, your hand has a lot more register on said hold. Let me find a better example. If we go ahead and take a look at this slopey pinch my bobber, when I'm grabbing it, I'm gonna hold it with my hands nice and on. From here, I wanna position my body directly beneath the hold. If my body, my hips are away from the hold, it's gonna be really hard to apply force downwards, causing me to slip or dry fire. Likewise, if I'm able to bring my hips really far into the hold, then the amount of register is gonna be really good. But considering how most climbs are constructed, it'd be really hard to keep my hips really close to the wall. Therefore, the most natural conclusion is just to have it hang directly beneath the hold. With it hung directly beneath the hold, I'm able to acquire semi-good register simply because all the force is pushing down on my hands. When it comes to slopers, something you don't want to do is to hold it in a bent arm position like so. The reason why is because as we start to pull ourselves up, our elbows will start to rise. When the elbows start to rise, the amount of force you can apply downwards becomes very difficult. If we take it from, say, a jog's point of view, it's very easy to put force down into it like this. But if you try to put force down into it with your elbows up, you will notice an immediate weakness. And when it comes to slopers, something that doesn't have any edges, that weakness will cause you to slide off and or fly off. Therefore, the best way to take slopers is with your arms extended as low as you can be and your body weight beneath it. From here, I can hold it relatively comfortable. But as I get higher and higher, I start to lose it because the ability for me to put force into the sloper decreases. But you might be thinking, Chang, how can I get to the next hold if by pulling it makes the sloper worse? And the answer here is with smooth speed. So instead of that typical, hey, I'm gonna pull, hold, lock it off, and then reach, of course I was able to do that because a little bit easy. What we want to go ahead and do is start from that extended position where the maximum register is good. In this case, remember the case is always to be below the sloper. From here, we're gonna generate some momentum and then go. As we're going, the down hand, the hand that remains on the sloper, we're gonna try to activate elbows into the wall. I'm gonna demonstrate what I mean on this black Juggalicious climb, just because it's a lot easier. So we're gonna take a look at, say, my, I guess we're going with right elbow then. When I go up with my right elbow, if I'm treating this like a sloper, I'm gonna try to keep it as close to the wall as I can and close to my body as I can, because I don't want it to rise, because if it rises, I lose that register. So if this is the sloper, I'm low. I'm gonna keep my elbow low as I go, and I'm trying to keep it close to the wall as I can. If I was to allow it to slide away, let me show you what that looks like. If I was to allow it to slide away like that, obviously this is a jug and I managed to stay on, but you can see how if this was a sloper and it was like slope like that, then the second my arms came up like that, I completely slip. But by trying to maintain that elbow completely down the whole time, I'm still able to acquire a little bit of push as I start to rise to the next hold. And then that does bring us to the question of which grip should we use and how should we interact with the sloper when we're holding it? Should my hand be open like that in order to get the most surface area, or should it be compressed like this in order to pinpoint the amount of force I could generate into my fingers? Funny enough, whether the hands are like this or like this, the surface area is the same because the size of your hand does not change. Therefore, the only thing we really have to worry about is where are we placing the force? Do we want to go ahead and disperse the force onto all 5 fingers, or is it better to concentrate it into one solid point? And I'm here to tell you, it is generally a lot better when you're holding slopers to have your hand compressed together. With it compressed together, you're gonna place it onto the hold. I want you to think about your hand like it's a shoe, and how you really don't want your toes to be spread out, but you want all that force concentrated in one point. In a sense, when it comes to holding slopers, you kind of want to treat it like a crimp or open hand crimp, where you're kind of just dragging on it with your fingertips in order to have somewhere to focus on. Of course, the thumb does apply a little bit of compression from the other side, wherever it is, and that little bit of pinchation right there does help generate a little bit of friction when you're holding onto the sloper. And quick recap, instead of a really widespread hand where you're dispersing the force on the sloper, you want to be nice and together as if you're creating a shoe with your hand and applying the force directly into the sloper to acquire a good register on one particular point of said sloper. To further drive home the point, when I'm holding a sloper, my 3 main points of contact are going to be my fingers that are compressed, so somewhere around here, the bottom of my palm right here, so I can get a little bit of compression, and my thumb here, so it all comes together kind of like in this triangle formation. When applied to an actual sloper, I'm holding it like this for this example, right? I'll take my thumb, press, and I'm compressing like that. My fingers are pushing down like that, and the bottom of my palm is kind of sliding in like that to help compress. Doing it like that, I actually, if you come take a look, there's gonna be a little bit of gap between my fingers right there. That right there is the initial startup stage for me. But when I start to actually put force down into it, of course, everything will flatten. And with that thing flatten, I'll get a little bit more register and start to lock in all those 3 main points of contact. But the key here is I have 1, 2, 3 points of contact that are all compressing together in order to continue holding on to a sloper which has absolutely no edges. I find that's really useful to focus on these 3 main points. Of course, you could just focus on 1 or 2, but by focusing on 3, it's a little bit better. But that does mean that slopers are a bit risk intensive. Let's talk about how to go about it. But what happens when you can't use your thumb or your palm to hold on to a sloper? And this is true for all slopers, but maybe even more so in this situation. In a situation like this, it's important to understand that when we're holding slopers, we're never necessarily trying to pull onto the sloper. Pulling onto the sloper will probably generate that elbow out action and cause you to slip, which is very painful. Instead, when we're holding slopers, we want to think of our hand as a very, very sticky hook, and it just sticks and holds onto it. We're not trying to squeeze harder. We're definitely not gonna try to loosen up. Once we're able to stick on the sloper, we're gonna assume it's body position that's the problem. So if I hit a sloper like this, in order to make it better, I'm gonna slink my elbow beneath my hand, and then I'm gonna extend my body away from it. From here, the friction increases, the register is a lot better, but to make it better, I'm gonna sink down. When we're hitting slopers, moving on slopers, it's about maneuvering our body up and through the sloper to make it better, not necessarily, hey, how hard can I crank myself above it, unlike what other holds like jugs, crimps, where it might just be, hey, can you pull through? But with slopers, it's can you move your body through? Did that make sense? This isn't exclusive to slopers, but I do find it's more actionable on slopers, and what I mean is, when you're holding 2 slopers, or just simply 2 holds at a distance, doesn't matter, we have to understand that we have the ability to compress the hold. If we look at this pink one right here, when we compress these 2 slopers, it obviously becomes something that you can hold as opposed to just trying to pull it backwards. The compression force makes it a lot easier to hold. And this is very cool and interesting, but the same applies when you're holding 2 slopers and you have to push them away from each other. So instead of that conventional, I'm gonna try to hang down as low as I can, I can't. But if I take the slopers and then I apply that same principle, elbows down, and then I spread it apart, oh yeah, the register, you might not be able to tell, but the register increases dramatically when I try to push the 2 slopers apart, just because I now have oppositional forces going in each other's direction, keeping me closer to the wall. So, very important, when it comes to slopers, we want to use both hands in order to pull apart or pull in. Try that and that should help greatly. Of course, this also means for all directions. It's just not this or that. It could be this this, or that.
Hey, thanks for watching. And if you enjoy videos like this and want to become a better climber, I more or less drop videos like this every single day. If you like, comment, subscribe. It does help me help you become a better climber. And now you know.